Let's talk herd. So you said that you're doing some new work,
Yeah, I get
with
it's
horses.
not, yeah, it's not really new. I've been doing it. I just haven't been doing it large scale. We'll be, do a
Yeah,
clinic here, clinic there. And we work on ways to find that happiness and joy with
yeah,
whatever's going on in
yeah,
usually in the vicinity of horses, because I like to be in the vicinity of horses.
yeah. So what
Um,
kind of, if you had to put a name on it, what would you call it?
mm, I'm actually working on that. Right now, it's called equine experience, and
Okay,
an
yeah.
alternate title is horse watching. You know,
Yes, yeah,
one sounds a little more dynamic than the other, but
yeah,
it's kind of the same thing, just
yeah. So how would
being
you
with them.
say, what happens? You just kind of, when you go to see them, do you connect like from a distance?
Well, it really starts with a conversation with the person who wants to come out and
Yeah,
get into what they want to learn. Do they want to learn
yeah,
about herd dynamics? Do they want to feel what this magic may be? Are they open to whatever might
yeah.
happen? And then we'll tailor the time
Okay,
together in the pasture for that.
right.
I'm my specialty, my love is um, just sharing different ways that have worked for me and for a lot of other people
Mm,
to find that joy and connection and um, communication
yeah.
in.
Can you describe that? Like how would you put that into words?
Um, yeah, well, that's the ironic thing because it's the place without words. So I can
Yeah,
try again.
yeah,
I mean, the closest words they have are like meditation and mindfulness.
yeah,
And
yeah.
but those are words, and really it's that experience of,
Mm,
oh my gosh, everything is infinitely synchronized and in
yeah.
harmony, and even the in the discord and in the struggles there's this beautiful dance that's happening.
Mm,
You just
yeah.
kind of use those descriptive words that paint the picture of this harmonious, peaceful, compassionate, yet dynamic. And tragedy can be in there and turmoil can be in
Mm,
there.
yeah.
It's when people have their last breath, and then the ones
Mm,
that come back to life, they describe this uh usually it's this beautiful other reality
mm,
that's behind this
yeah.
reality.
Mm,
And
like
it's,
rapture.
yeah, and it's knowable, but it's only
Mm,
knowable right now and right now and right now.
mm,
We don't really have ways built into our society to practice finding it now and now and
mm,
now. So
yeah.
that's what I love doing. I just keep
Mm,
finding it for myself, and
yeah.
then as I'm around people, maybe the right thing will come out and they'll see, oh, this is how you
Mm,
do it. Oh, this is how you do it.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there is like a way, is there, that you can,
There's
because it,
infinite ways. Yeah, there's so many
yeah,
different ways. And I
yeah.
have, a list of maybe 16 different ways that work really well for me. And,
Mm,
that can fill any moment. Any moment
yeah.
I feel not in that flow, disconnected, that's okay
Mm,
too. It's beautiful
yeah.
because then I get the coming back into
Yeah.
recognition. It's like we never even leave it. It's why we're breathing. It's why our
Yeah.
heart is beating.
Yeah. So true. So, how would you say the horses influence that, that those moments?
That's a good question. The closest scientific thing I've heard is the studies that HeartMath did about
Mm,
the heart
yeah.
coherence,
Yeah.
and
That's
that the
amazing.
horses' field of influence is like 5 times bigger than ours. So just
Yeah.
that seems to have validity. Do you just
Yeah.
feel better when you come
Yeah.
into proximity with a horse, especially
So
when the
true.
horse is free and can
Yeah.
seemingly choose whether to be with you or not, and then they
Yeah.
want to come with you. But now I
Mm.
recognize even when they don't want to come, that's
Mm.
just as amazing, you know?
Yeah.
But there
Yeah,
is
it doesn't
something as the
change.
horse comes closer that you feel like, whoa,
Mm. Yeah.
this is an
Yeah.
amazing thing happening here. Why would they want to be with me?
Yeah, they've just got this wholeness, don't they? That I think that's so. I think with horses, it is quite easy for us to affect that, though, to kind of start to shut that down. And I think quite a lot of people haven't felt the power of that in a horse, because a lot of the horses that people are around are quite, I mean, people say shut down. That's kind of one way of putting it. But
Yeah, learned helplessness.
yeah, they're just really kind of, it's like they've really left, their spirits kind of left their body. And
Hmm.
yeah, and I
That's
don't,
what I was really, that's the question I set out to answer in the path of the horse. Like, where
yeah,
is this beauty that the horses
yeah,
seem to have lost? And it was really Alexander Neverov's horses. Like he really went far in exploring how to listen
yeah,
to them, to the
yeah,
extent that he taught them to talk. Basically, they
yeah,
could spell and make even sentences.
yeah.
And then they told him they didn't want to be doing that. But
Mm.
for me, just being
Yeah.
in the presence of, they didn't
Yeah.
want to be trained at all. So that's when he stopped
Yeah.
writing. He stopped training. He's like, oh, okay, got it.
Wow.
Now it makes sense.
That's really interesting because I remember seeing videos of him riding. I'm sure it was riding
Hmm. Yeah,
years ago. And I thought the horses did look very stressed to me.
right.
They just didn't look happy. And so I was like, well, that's not really the answer then. Like, because sometimes the most unhappy looking horses are the ones that are doing liberty work,
Hmm.
because it's not, because it's like a sort of liberty without, like, you can't see the the constraints. I suppose the constraints are mental, and I think that's even more damaging, really.
Right, right.
But yeah, that's amazing that he kind of came to that and was able to let go. I mean, I think. Yeah, so your documentary, that was amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And back to Alexander Nesterov, it was
Yeah.
meeting his horses in person. I
Mm,
They just had such a presence and such an intelligence
yeah.
that is what I suspected horses really had, but I hadn't
Yes.
experienced it because none of the mature horses that I knew
Yeah,
had
we're
that.
like, mm,
Even yeah, it's similar to wild horse, but in a different way because they're very
yeah.
cultured. They're very cultured.
Mm,
So
yeah.
that's when I just threw everything away and said, "Okay, whatever he
Yeah.
says to do to get that, let's do that." And it was really
Yeah.
honoring the horse's no and
Yes. Yeah.
respecting that the horse has just as valid a
Absolutely.
decision, even maybe a better decision of how to spend our time.
Mm, yeah.
And then
Yeah.
my horses became like that, and it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. I call that when they're alive because it's
Mhm.
so different. Like sometimes if I don't have a lot of people coming, but sometimes when people come and they see they're around my ones, they are like they're just amazed by that aliveness, that life. And I think that is one of the biggest issues. I think that people just don't know what a horse is. They've never experienced it. And those horses that are shut down and in that way, they're very, it's just so hard to, it's just hard to, you can't tell somebody that they're like that because they won't accept it because that's all they've known. And
Right.
so I don't know what really makes it. Maybe somebody just meeting one that is not like that is like with you. I suppose that's what happened. And
Exactly. That's why I think the
yeah,
in-person
Yeah.
offering is so important
Yeah.
because you wouldn't know otherwise.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I
And then with
think,
that comparison, you can look back and see, a horse that you might rent for a ride or ride
mm,
in a riding lesson. It's like, ooh,
yeah.
this doesn't look right anymore.
Yeah, it's so
This
true. It's the
horse doesn't look
difference.
happy.
Yeah. I think with me it was the energy work. It was like becoming more attuned energetically. So I just gradually started to realize that, just the difference because you can feel it in energy so strongly when they're not there, when they're, shut down or dissociated is another another word for it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think, yeah, and a lot of people find that way. It's like through that therapeutic type of thing, but then you have to go through the whole healer thing and come out of the other side of that.
That's why I like the
Yeah.
horse watching description. We're just
Yeah.
horse watching. It
Yeah.
kind of removes those expectations of, oh, the
Yes.
horse is going to heal me.
Exactly. Yeah. Because that healing, I think expectations is such a huge thing, isn't it? Like, that's such a gift to be able to come to the horses without them. Like, I think the horses feel that. They really appreciate that. If you just, if that isn't there, I suppose it's quite hard for most people, especially if you're offering like an experience or a session or something, then it's kind of, yeah, that's a good way to sort of get parallel to it because if people are expecting just to watch and just to be observe and be aware, then that's great.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just an expedition. We're just going to go watch
yeah,
horses
yeah,
and enjoy our time.
yeah. So is Sundance still alive? Is she
Oh
having
my gosh.
babies?
No, she died. You have to read my new book. So it's,
Yeah.
I've been working with another author and we're trying to make kind of two books in one, but my part is basically done and I tell the end of Sundance's story.
Okay.
So the
Wow.
part that you read was the beginning of her story,
Right.
kind of midway, and
Yeah.
then I tell the end of her
Yeah.
story. But she went out in a magnificent way.
Oh.
It's, I don't want to spoil it. It's
Yeah,
only
that's
Sundance could
amazing.
have done that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but no, she left, and her partner left right near the same time.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
um, yeah, now I have Sophie and Eclipse.
Okay.
And
Right.
Sophie, have you read Sophie's story?
No, no, I didn't
She
read
wa-
that.
she was she was sent to me as a 3-year-old to be started under
Okay.
saddle and sold as a kid's
Yeah.
pony. She's about
Right.
13, 1, good size. And
Yeah.
I'm small. So I
Yeah.
always got the ponies to
Like
start
me.
as well as the big
It's
ones.
ideal. Yeah.
But man, she was not into it. She was really sweet and
No.
loving on the ground, but as soon as you take away her liberty, she was like, "You will not do that to
Wow.
me."
Yeah.
And this was just before I did the Path of the Horse. She was the one that was like, "Okay,
Wow.
I give up."
Yeah.
You're obviously being
There's
very honest
something.
about what's okay with
Yeah.
you. So I
Okay.
ended up buying her from the lady who had bought her as an investment
Right.
because she would never be a kid's pony. That would just be cruel
Mm.
to either the kid or Sophie.
Yeah.
But she was fascinating to me because she was saying what the other horses were saying. She was just so much louder.
Yeah.
She was a pony, so, like it wasn't just warm
Yeah.
blood intimidation. It's like, okay, we gotta work
Yeah.
this out. I did start her and I rode her for about a year. And she was
Yeah.
very bold and, we had some nice moments, but it was obvious
Yeah.
like this is just not a cool
The
thing to do with her.
resistance. Yeah.
Um, so she's gonna turn 20 this year. So
Wow.
she's
Yeah.
been a very long-term companion, and her
Yeah.
partner is Eclipse. We got him when they were
Okay.
both about 8. And
Right.
he was kind of a rescued rescue. He was in somebody's backyard being starved. And
Okay.
he'd
Yeah.
never been ridden. You can tell he's never had a bit in his mouth or saddle on his back.
Yeah.
But he had been like round penned, chased, and like
Okay. Yeah.
he's kind of flipped out at plastic bags.
Yeah.
Um, but he's just had all this time to be a horse, and he's
Yeah.
like, he just loves to be touched. He's
Yeah.
my knight in shining armor. He's
Yeah.
tall, dark, and handsome, and
Yeah.
a very
Yeah.
good partner for Sophie.
Yeah. I think they really do. They do enjoy our company. Yeah. It's interesting what you said about the positive reinforcement. Is that what it's called these
Hmm.
days? Because yeah, I never really felt much affinity for that because it just seemed like losing that presence, because it was always creating this separation. Like, like if a horse is expecting something from you, then
Right.
you're like, you just lose that connection. You were just sort of losing it all the time because I suppose because they're in a state of expectation then. So you're kind of, and then I suppose it's this back to the same old thing of that you're asking them to do something for you,
Right. And the
which,
line I find with that is I'll use kind of a modification of that to do their feet,
yeah,
to do things that they
yeah,
really need done, that I think as
yeah,
as their uh,
yeah,
captor and their guardian,
yes,
I believe,
yes,
even though it's uncomfortable and awkward, and a horse doesn't like to stand with their foot up
yes, yeah,
and be trimmed. That's where I say, I am your guardian, and
yes,
this needs to be done.
yeah,
Even that
yeah,
I
that's,
experiment with, there
yes,
Eclipse, I don't trim his feet. He
mm,
does just a great job doing it himself. And sometimes they look a little rough, but then they chip
yeah.
off and they look
It's a
beautiful
real
again.
fight. Yeah, it is. It's still a dialogue that. Like Karamba decided that she didn't need me to do her feet, especially her front feet for some reason. So I just respect that with her because I feel it's important for her at the moment for whatever reason. But the others in general, I just do it when they're in the barn and I don't. The only one that I ever tie up to do is that I've got a mare who's a little bit, she's just a little bit, I think if she was a human, she'd just be a little bit odd. She's just kind of I don't know, I don't really want to put a label on her, but she actually prefers to eat a hay net and just be tied up because it's just easier for her. And then she's fine, she's relaxed. And sometimes I do it with nothing with her in the barn, but for her, she's
I
just calm.
prefer to be with the hay net without being tied up. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, I'd have to. Yeah, I mean, she could do that, although the grass is too good around where I suppose I'd have
Mm.
to put her somewhere where there is no grass. Yeah, I mean, the tying up is nice, but sometimes I don't even tie her up. I just put it over her neck, but she has to kind of stay in the one place. But yeah, it's fun just to kind of keep developing, isn't it?
Each
Keep
moment is new,
listening. Yeah,
even if it's something you've done 100 times, this moment is still new. You've
absolutely.
never done it this moment before.
Exactly, yeah. And I think it's fun to kind of work with the energy of their feet and like if they can feel whether it's helping them or not, I think. Like whether they feel more comfortable and just like building the awareness around that. Because then it's less, just and not making assumptions and things. Yeah, it is quite an interesting process to do that. And I feel like I find when we can get into that, I call it like a merge place where our energies are quite merged together, then they're just really soft and really relaxed and really, it's like they quite enjoy the whole process of being there. But it has to be really spontaneous. Like like I don't insist that we do this, that we have to finish today and that we do this V, and it has to be quite just going with the flow. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's maybe the hardest thing for people to let go of, is this kind of idea of routine, and that they have to, things have to be specified, and they know that what's going to happen, and just like allowing.
That's kind of the whole schooling system, like the second
Yeah,
we
it's
start
true.
in kindergarten when
Absolutely.
we're 5 or whenever we start. It's like, okay, now here's
Yeah.
problems and here's solutions and here's tests and here's methods and here's blah 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 blah. Blah.
Yeah.
It's not it's not really humanity. It's not really
No.
nature.
And I suppose you're like told that you have to sit at a desk as well and just
Mm-hmm.
be quiet and do what you're told.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are these forest schools now. Have you heard of those
I've
things?
heard of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think step in the right direction for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're definitely waking up in a lot of ways. Yeah. So how do you feel that people just come to it in their own time, and it's not something that you're not like campaigning? It's not like the
I
fight
mean, I am
against.
campaigning because I just, what are you going to do? I
Yeah.
think, you do need to use your voice to speak out against what you see as
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
The task for me is I'm at like this huge extreme of do nothing with horses versus,
Mm,
the most disciplined
yes.
disciplines. Um,
Mm,
so, there's so many different angles that I could
yeah.
talk about. But I mean, just even doing these podcasts is beautiful because
Mm,
we
yeah.
we touch on different parts of your experience and my experience, and
Yeah.
then the third
Absolutely.
person watching has their own experience. So I think this
Yeah.
is doing it, and just by
Yes. Sharing.
yeah,
Yeah.
tuning in right now, being in
Yeah.
that peaceful vibe and choosing
Yeah.
choosing the words that come up. It's
Yeah. Because I always think back to me and my journey, and if I hadn't gone through the stages that I went through, I wouldn't like be where I am now. So it's hard to sort of think that we can just give that to like say to somebody else, like, you are doing the wrong thing, because it has to be your own like on realization, doesn't it? So I do think I'm sure that, like you say, we can accelerate things for people, because the more that you see that's different, the more you become aware and you start to think, you start to notice things. And yeah, so I like the idea of sharing better than like
Mhm.
fighting against. Yeah.
It's just a different trip, a different
Mm,
exploration. You kind of have to have the black to have the white and the dark to have the light. So
yeah, it's true.
it's in there. It has its time and place.
Yeah.
But I certainly wouldn't like follow and be listening to somebody who's arguing all the time and spewing this.
No.
Uh, is somebody I wouldn't want to be around, and
Yeah.
that's kind of what I saw from the top trainers is
Mm,
they could use these beautiful words, but then
yeah.
what you see them doing is like that's not nice. That's
Yes.
not nice. That's
I
not a
think that's the issue for me always, that the words can be really almost exactly the same. That's what's a bit scary. Like, you're using these words and you're meaning something, and then someone else is using them, and you look at what they do and you're like, oh my God, that's like not the same at all. So it's, yeah. And I think that they're also quite clever people like that, because they kind of know what words to use. Like, they know, it's like it's like they kind of want to have everything in a way. Like, they use the words that's going to make people think it's all right, and that they're doing the right thing. And
They're honest in their own minds. They really
yeah,
believe what they
yeah, I
say.
guess so.
And
Yeah,
they love horses just as much as we do.
yeah,
They're just convinced of a different reality.
yeah, yeah. That
And
I do,
you have to
because
start
yeah,
with like, okay, well, I mean, if you want some ideas from me about how to do things differently, I can certainly
yeah,
say them, but whether
yeah.
whether it's for them or not.
Do you think that, because like for me, if I go against what I feel a horse's wishes are, I feel that resistance and it just feels bad to me. Like there's just that. Do you think that people can do that and not feel bad about it? Or do you think they're
Yeah.
just not aware of their feelings?
Well, yeah, they um, I mean, obviously psychopaths can do that and really
Yeah.
honestly not have a realization,
Yeah.
and there are some of those in the horse industry for sure.
Yeah.
Um, Most people, I mean, certainly the way I was, I knew the horse didn't like it, but
Yeah.
I also thought I had this higher vision of, oh, well, you have to do this.
Yes.
Just like I'm thinking for their feet now. That's why
Mm.
I'm experimenting even with their feet.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really honestly believe that their feet need to be done, their teeth need to be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
y-
I'm
You
on
know,
that path. Yeah. I think I was more on that before the training because of for me, like doing the therapy and everything, I've always been really aware of the natural health and really probably obsessively against anything unnatural like antibiotics and all of that kind of medicines. So like yeah, so for me it is all really parallel and I really listen to I would never force the horses. Like none of mine are vaccinated. They've never had any medication and that would feel really wrong for me to insist. But then I totally get it when people do that because it's the same thing in a way, and you
right. And it's the same with writing. Like you really
yeah,
believe, like
it is.
in case something happens to me, I want you to go to a
Yeah.
good home, and you
Well,
can't find a good
yes,
home unless you're a riding horse.
that's true. Yeah, I've had moments of like, oh my God, because I've not, I don't do that with mine. I don't sort of, I mean, I'm sure that if push came to shove, they would do things, they would be obedient if they had to be. But yeah, I don't make that a sort of, that's not, it's just not like that for them. So then I do have moments of doubt, like, what are you doing? Are you just crazy? And like, are you just wasting their lives? And, I do have that. I'm not completely, and utterly unshakably. I mean, I am when it comes to like the reality of it with the horses. I just totally 100% believe in our connection. But then if I get sucked into like looking at what other people are doing and listening to what they're doing, and I think, you know, maybe maybe I'm just missing out on a lot of stuff because, you know, maybe the horses, maybe because some people say that like you have to insist a little bit or you have to kind of help them and like a bit like you said at the beginning and but that just feels wrong to me so at the end I always just come back to what feels right for me but yeah
One story I like to tell myself that seems to help is, I mean, horses are so trainable, especially for somebody who knows how to train
yeah
them in the more traditional ways, that,
yeah
even a horse who you've never worked with their feet, as long as they don't have any deep traumas, in a couple of weeks you could
mm,
be working with their feet. It's something that
yeah
they can learn easily, or you have to get them
yeah
in a trailer. Like you can work it
yeah
out if that need arises. So that's how I've
yeah
experimented with Eclipse's feet specifically. He never
mm,
had his feet worked with, you could tell. And I figured, well,
Yeah.
whenever he needs his feet worked with, I'll do it. And so it's been
Yeah.
10 years now, and
Yeah.
we still kind of
Exactly.
play with it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm out there. I actually
Yeah.
we started this thing where if he'd pick up his foot, I would scratch him where he wanted to be scratched. So now that's his begging.
Yeah.
He'll like come and just lift up his foot and hold it up
That's
until
so
I
funny.
scratch him where he
Yeah.
wants to be scratched. So, it's not a technique. It's just a funny thing that we
Yeah.
worked on
Yeah.
because we could. We didn't have to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in that, there's all sorts of things you can do together that seem to be mutually beneficial and at least not
Mm.
harmful.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I do think they enjoy those things. I have a bit of a phobia, and I don't know why that is, of conditioning, of things that feel like a conditioned response. Like I remember I had an Arab mare when I was a teenager, and she was amazing. She lived until she was 33, and she was really like a part of the family. But I taught her at some, I don't know, I can't remember how old I was, like 14 or something, and I taught her this trick where, like, just to paw in the air, and I'd
Hmm.
give her a sweet. And she never forgot, even when she was 33, you could still say to her, Remy, give me a paw, and she'd do it. And
Hmm.
like I saw the power of that, but I don't really like that because I feel like it's this kind of, there's something mechanical about it and something that's not connected about it. It's just like being a circus animal. So
Yeah, that's the positive reinforcement. That's
yeah,
the
yeah,
training.
yeah. So I just feel, I don't know, there's just something about it that feels disconnected to me. But maybe
Mhm.
that's like a phobia, like something in me that I haven't resolved. So I mean, I'm not.
Well, again, that goes down that road of anxiety and business relationship, which I'm just saying I still explore it if it has to do with their basic
Yeah,
needs, like
yeah,
trimming their feet.
yeah,
Just to do it so that I can do a trick for people, that's
yeah.
where you have to question the motive. But if I'm doing
Yes,
it because I really need to get into those feet, or I think I need to get into those feet and, put
yeah,
medicine on them or trim them or whatever,
yeah, yeah,
that's just such a different motivation.
yeah. I still have this kind of, and it does happen, often enough that I really believe in it, but I just feel like there is this way that you can be with them where they just understand, they just,
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and like, for example, when we moved down south here, we were up in the middle of France for a year, and Karamba had a really bad, it was just like a bad situation when we left. And so she'd had a bad experience in the trailer, and she hadn't been back in one again because we didn't have one there and all the rest of it. So when they came with the lorry, she wasn't going in it. And I just was like, okay, I'm just going to have to stay here. All of the rest of them, apart from we kept one to be her companion. And so they all went. And I'd borrowed a trailer for someone. And I was just like, we just put it in the arena, and we just kind of were in the arena together with this trailer. And it was kind of an unlikely situation because she got really claustrophobic. Like, it was a real extreme behavior in her. Like, you would think it would take months, and we only had a few days. And, but I didn't like try to we just sort of like basically meditated with the trailer and she started to just walk in it. And, but I didn't, until the morning that we left, I didn't shut it at all. And that morning, I was pretty nervous as well. So I don't think I was giving her like the best feeling either, because I was like, oh my God. But she just came in and we shut it up, and she rode down in the trailer like a queen. Like, she was so, and it was just that like blew me away because I was like, oh my God, like we don't really know what's possible. And And yet they really are capable of just understanding in such a profound way, you know. And I really believe in that. I really have faith in that, that, I mean, sometimes it gets knocked, and, when I feel like, nothing's happening, and, if I get like attached to results or whatever, but, that's me. But I think I just do really believe that that is there, and that we don't need anything to have that. It's just, it's
Mm-hmm.
just there. Yeah. So when you did the documentary, what would you say the most, like inspiring experience you had with someone was? Was it Alexander?
Yeah, it was meeting his horses. It
Yeah.
was his horses are like they just
Yeah.
looked at me with this, you know, transmuted to me
Wow.
something, just this
Yeah.
autonomy and empowerment and intelligence and him. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think he, out of all the people, he had gone the deepest with these particular horses,
Yeah.
and that's really what I was looking for. Is
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
can I mean, human the horses are in our lives. They need homes.
Mm.
So how can we be together with them in ways that bring out the
Yeah.
best in both of us?
Yeah.
And that, it was ironic that only 3 years after that he stopped riding and training altogether.
Yeah.
But when
Yeah.
that happened, it was like everything made sense. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So we're not doing haute école anymore. We're not using this
Yes.
to ultimately end up riding.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we're letting the horses be horses and
Yeah.
having that be enough.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I don't know if you follow him, but he's just an outspoken journalism and a reporter, and
Wow. No, I haven't looked
really,
for a while. I should.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's it's beautiful because
Yeah.
when he stopped spending all the time with horses, he could really go back to helping
Mm.
humans in the way that
Yes.
he's directed to help humans. Same
Yeah.
with me, I
Yeah.
could be having all these horses that I have these deep relationships with, or
Mm.
recognize that they're fine. They have their own deep
Yeah.
relationships. I can
Yeah.
come, I can go, and
Yeah.
I can spend the time with the humans.
Yeah. It's really what gives you joy as well, though, or not necessarily joy, but that sense of purpose. Like, do you feel that you're following your purpose in doing that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, purpose again, it's like it's another story. Like if we
Yeah.
get beyond the
Yeah.
stories, it's in the moment I'm following that inspiration. Like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, look at this, look up that,
Yeah.
go talk to this
Yeah.
person, go try this new
Mm.
thing.
Yeah.
And not needing to have any specific results is a big part too,
Yes.
because you're
Yeah.
enjoying the
Just
journey.
kind of.
And when people come
Yeah.
to me for coaching, it's because they want a result,
Yeah.
not recognizing that we got to enjoy the
That's
journey, and then the result doesn't matter. Like, people want to have a better
yes.
relationship so they
Yeah.
can ride their horse more. And I'm very honest.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to be riding your horse more. You'll be having a better time.
Well,
You'll be
that's
enjoying each
true.
other more.
Yeah.
Your capacity to love this horse will grow.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
don't know what it will look like physically, because that's between you and the horse, or
Yeah.
you and the other.
Yeah.
So
Do you think that it always kind of gets less and less about that obedience, or do you think there are some cases? Like, I read an article about a rider here in France who is a show jumper, and at first I was a bit like, oh, I'm not reading that because I'm not really interested in. But then I read it, and it was interesting that he has this, and I don't know, it's just words again, but he was saying that he has this relationship with his horses, and he really puts that first. And it sounded really like I got a good feeling from it. So yeah, I don't want to be too judgmental, about how that looks, and that, it's not possible to have that.
Well, somebody like that, it would be interesting to know them kind of behind the scenes.
Yes, that's what I
It's
always feel.
you can put
Yeah.
on a good face, but if you traveled with them, if
Yeah.
you groomed for them, if you
Yeah.
spent the time behind the barn, would
Exactly.
that person be
Yeah.
like that through and through, or are they
Yeah.
just saying the right words?
Yeah.
I don't know,
And do you
maybe.
think there are horses like there are? Because often people will say there are horses that love to perform and that that's why they're doing that.
I haven't met them. I haven't met them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm open to possibilities, but unless I really
Yeah.
met and knew their horse, it's
Yeah.
super hard to believe from the decades of
Yeah.
experience that I've had riding and
Yeah,
training.
I mean, I tend to agree. Agree with you. Yeah, I just don't like, yeah, I just feel like sometimes I don't want to feel like I'm judgmental, but
Well, in that case, they're not looking for feedback. They're looking for, affirmation from people that believe them and that want to believe that same
mm,
story. So I just kind
yeah,
of generally keep my nose out of
yeah,
it. And
yeah, 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 there's not really, I don't think it really matters either. I mean, I don't think we need to compare ourselves to others either,
well, it could be
because
done
it's not,
powerfully in like a book. Like if somebody wrote a book and there's these
yeah,
characters, then
yes,
it kind of takes
that's
the
true.
pressure off. We're not
Yeah,
confronting anybody directly, but we're still pointing out like,
yeah,
hey, listen to this person's words and then
yeah,
see this person's
that's true.
actions.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah,
interesting to me. That's inspiring to me to try and find ways
yeah,
to write that story. I mean, that's what the
yeah.
path of the horse was. It was kind of showing that story
Mm,
of, oh,
yeah.
we're going to competitions now and looking at these horses who love this so much. And then you see these
Yeah.
gruesome faces with bits and whips and it's like, oh my God, that's not real. So I think there's
Yeah.
ways to tell stories like that. Like Black Beauty, that was
Yeah.
such a beautiful book.
Oh my God. That, when you were talking about that, that instantly came into my mind, like how incredibly powerful that book was.
It changed so
Yeah.
much.
Oh my God. I was thinking about what was her name, the chestnut mare.
Ginger.
Ginger. God, that was so sad. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And maybe that was, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe children who read that are more prone to being open when they grow up. Who
Yeah.
knows?
Or the Black Stallion
Yeah.
movie. That was
Yes,
incredible.
that. Yeah, really powerful. Trying to think about. I loved Bambi when I was growing up, the book, but then I read it again as an adult and I really didn't like it
Mm.
because I felt like there was a lot of stuff coming through from the author that you just don't pick that up as a child at all,
Right.
do you? Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, well, it's been really nice talking to you.
You too. I appreciate
Yeah.
I think you're the calmest uh, person who's interviewed me.
Do you think? I like to kind of, what I really want for this podcast is that it is, when you're just talking to someone and you just get that real like creativity that happens just because so I think it's not like about having a fixed, like how people will sometimes go into their sort of, what's the word for it? Like their track, like what they do and who they are, their identity, I suppose. And I just want to kind of have something that's beyond that, so that it's more about just two people meeting in the moment and just like whatever,
Yeah,
sparking something new. And
I think you've
yeah,
done it.
so yeah. Well, it was really nice to talk to you, and You're welcome always to come back and do it again.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I think we covered
Yeah.
some territory here and
Yeah.
opened some
Is there
doorways.
anything else that you want to say about books or anything that you're doing or
Oh, so I do have a nonprofit, Many Paths to the Heart, and
Yes, I saw that.
that is
Yeah.
really rallying around autonomous horsemanship, which is,
Yeah.
how can we do horsemanship in
Yeah.
the most healthy and joyous, harmonious way possible. So we're
Yeah.
exploring,
Yeah.
we're really defining what autonomous horsemanship
Yeah.
is, given that horses can't
Yeah.
have true autonomy unless they're
Absolutely.
wild.
Yeah.
Um,
I think of that as contemporary horsemanship. Yeah, and it's really fascinating because there's quite a lot of people out there actually, more than you would think, doing that kind of stuff, or more than I thought.
yeah, there's people who really get it, and people who got it
Yeah,
from the beginning, or people who kind of woke
yeah,
up to, oh, this is the kind of
absolutely.
person I want to be.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
nice to have a community, and we have monthly calls and
cool.
Autonomous Horsemanship
Yeah,
Academy and all sorts of
that's great.
ways to explore
Yeah,
this sort of
okay.
relationship with horses. So I love
Yeah,
it if anybody wants to join us there. You don't have
yeah,
to practice autonomous horsemanship. You can do whatever you want.
yeah,
It's just a place to
okay.
gather and
Yeah,
uh, have community,
share.
share community, and
Yeah,
what's on our minds uh, relating to
yeah,
these
that's
topics.
great. Yeah. It's amazing that there are more and more of these type of things now. And I think it helps with social media as well. More of an opportunity maybe to for people to see something.
Yeah, to even know it's a possibility. You're not going to find it in a library. You're not going to find it in your
No,
local teachers,
no,
probably.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Because I remember growing up, there was only really the clinics that you went to and the teachers that you had
Mhm.
locally.